The United States was founded by immigrants, and Bethlehem Lutheran was no exception. It was after World War I that many fled their homelands of Eastern Europe from such places as Germany, Poland, and Russia to find a future and a place to call home. Many were drawn to the Lansing area for jobs in the emerging auto industry with Oldsmobile and later the REO Motors Company. Upon finding work, building homes, and becoming citizens, these young immigrants encouraged and sponsored many of their families back home to join them here in the United States. It was the Holy Spirit moving in these young immigrants that led to what we know as Bethlehem Evangelical Lutheran Church in 1924. From their homeland, they had brought a strong Lutheran faith.
Hello, my name is Otto Kern. I've been a member of Bethlehem Lutheran Church for 90 years. 24 families left Emmanuel Lutheran Church. That's a rather large church downtown. When I really sat down to think about it and wrote some notes down, it was more than just a few items. My life kind of circles around Bethlehem and has for years.
The first meeting was on July 13, 1924, in the home of Mr. and Mrs. Fred Ristow. Only a few weeks later, they began worshiping in their homes. It was the Rotzall family, Gustav and Amelia, along with their 3 children, who opened their home at 1615 Delavan to hold the first of many worship services on August 10, 1924. With 60-plus people in attendance in these homes, plans were quickly made to purchase land and locate the church at the southern border of Lansing on Ray Street at Mount Hope, near the newly constructed Walter French Junior High School, within walking distance of the worshiping families.
Initially, they met in people's homes, but then remember now this was 1924, 100 years ago, and the First World War was just over, and there was a lot of Army surplus stuff. Some of the stuff was a little chapel that they put around the country, and somehow they were able to purchase from the U.S. Army a surplus, brand new stuff, a white chapel. It was prefabbed, it was built in sections, and at that time the membership had a lot of farmers, and they had the horses and their wagons, and they went down to the railroad station many trips and hauled all these sections of white chapel, and with the furnace, the whole thing that goes with it. It was a complete unit.
Committed to serving the community, Bethlehem called its first pastor, Reverend Carl Althoff, who was installed on March 22, 1925. Pastor Althoff presided over Bethlehem's first confirmation class of 4 teenagers and 1 adult, held on April 4, 1926, and its first wedding for Herman Marks and Olga Rotzall on November 19, 1927. Pastor Althoff served his young congregation until 1928, followed by its second pastor, Reverend George C. Buboltz, on September 20th, 1928. Pastor Buboltz preached his first sermon at Bethlehem in English, to which when he had finished his sermon, Mrs. Robert Netzloff got up and said, "Herr Pastor, we speak German here." And for the next 20 years, there was a German service at 9 a.m. and an English service at 10 a.m., with Sunday school for adults and children at 11 a.m.
I'm Elsie Snyder Leisure. My parents are Adolf and Rose Snyder. They are charter members of Bethlehem Lutheran Church. When I was a child, I attended, they had German services I have to sit through both services. That was what you were required to do when you were that age. A little old wooden church, and they had first the German service first, and then the English.
Sunday school and Bible classes became an outstanding part of the church, with 50-plus adults in attendance every Sunday morning with great enthusiasm. After
the initial church was built, a few years later, they enlarged the little white chapel almost half as much, and under the new section they had a kitchen, and right next to it, in another room, was a sand table. The sand table was about the size of a pool table, and Mrs. Hanneman and Gert Days being Sue Nelson's mother, they taught this class in the sand table. That's really my first memory of Bethlehem, and they had little figures that depicted Jesus and Moses and the desert and all that kind of stuff, and it really taught me a lesson, and it stayed with me for a long time.
I'm Audrey Skidmore, and I've been a member of Bethlehem Lutheran Church since I was 3 years old.
I'm Joe Skidmore. I've been a member of Bethlehem for 70 years when I married Audrey.
My very first memory of the church was sitting in the sand table class with Marjorie Ruddon, and across from us sat Otto and Ray Kern. And Mrs. Wecker had the sand table class, and it was a white sand with a mirror for the lake, and they had figurines that they moved around to tell Bible stories. It was a memory I'll always keep. It was a fun way to start out Sunday school classes.
By 1941, a total of 267 persons had been confirmed. At the heart of serving the needs of the south end of Lansing, Bethlehem quickly established Boy and Girl Scouts and Brownie troops from outside the parish to serve youth and children from the surrounding neighborhood.
Another highlight, and it may not be a highlight to a lot of people, but we had a very strong Boy Scout troop at that time, troop number 37. I was a member of that.
Along with providing a strong Luther League for high school and young adults, serving as a center for the community. The youth played an important part in the life of this young congregation. In fact, they took it upon themselves to help raise the funds to buy the first organ and piano for the church, which served the congregation for many years. Having been inspired by attending a Lutheran student convention, Pastor Buboltz brought a passion for campus ministry as Michigan State College bordered the east side of Lansing. Since Bethlehem was the closest Lutheran church in the area, many students attended worship coming by streetcar, which led to the establishment of the Lutheran Student Club. And on April 27, 1941, 57 students organized as charter members of the Lutheran Congregation of East Lansing, which today is University Lutheran Church in East Lansing. Music has and still remains an important part of the ministry of Bethlehem. It was early on that the music program really took off after a young organist and choir director, Flora Kleinworth, came to Bethlehem while still residing in Detroit. In the first 15 years of Bethlehem, 3 separate choirs had been established. The German English choir, which included many charter members, the Young People's Choir, and the choristers, the Children's Choir.
The choir was a lot different back then too. It was made up of a lot of young people. Otto and Ray Kern sang in the choir, and Irene Yankee. She became what's Phil's last name? Hassler. She married Phil Hassler. Marjorie Rudd sang in the choir. It was made up a lot more of younger people than today.
The women of the church, through the Ruth Guild and the Ladies' Aid, had many activities to raise money for such necessities as the church bell, baptismal font, pulpit, altar hangings, bulletin board, kitchen supplies, hymnals, and other supplies. Weekly bulletins reported that these organizations regularly purchased bonds for the church with income earned. The Ruth Guild sponsored the junior choir. The Ladies' Aid Society was credited with getting funds for the entire cost of the new addition to the chapel, amounting to $2,300. The success of Bethlehem is due in a great degree to the faithfulness of these Christian women. Such dedication was made evident in an important event for which the church became well known and attracted big crowds: sauerkraut suppers. Tables were made by church members because there was no money. The men of the church made the sauerkraut weeks ahead of time so it would ferment. They also set up the dining hall, while the women were responsible for preparing and serving the meal. These hard-working men and women considered it an honor to be involved in this event.
And then we have good sauerkraut suppers where my mother and Tante Ratzo would shave the sauerkraut and make the sauerkraut and let it cure. I remember having it in the basement and it was ugly stuff. But it was so good. It was so good.
Another remembrance that I had was the old sauerkraut suppers. My brother Ray and I and the Hefke twins, Harold and Herbert Hefke, were kind of like busboys. We cleaned the tables and took garbage out and all the kind of jobs, but it was kind of fun. We met a lot of people, and it was a joyous time and a lot of camaraderie with the congregation and other people.
The church was a cornerstone of the community and a vital part of people's lives. As Bethlehem drew upon its 25th anniversary, Bethlehem had brought 528 people to Christ through baptism and had married 275 couples. With leading of the Spirit, by 1945 there was a vision to build a new church which would house this ministry known as Bethlehem Lutheran, as the ministry had grown to 400 communing members and 600 baptized members by this time. As the church was continuing to grow, Pastor Buboltz resigned in 1948 to follow in his father's footsteps. Pastor Edward Nest became the interim pastor until Walter F. Copeland arrived and was installed on January 16, 1949, to lead a new beginning with plans for a new building for this young, flourishing congregation known as Bethlehem Evangelical Lutheran Church.
It's been a good life with the church, and I hope it continues to grow and will be there forever.